So how do we learn how to communicate? This is interesting too, right? So how do we learn? Have you ever thought about how you learned to communicate in the way that you do? So first it starts with, our environment. So, when we're born into a certain environment, there's a certain language or way of speaking or words that are used. So it's not just about culture. It's about, or, as in the language we speak at home, whether it's English or Greek or Italian or whatever that is. But it's about the words that are used at home or the phrases. Do you ever find yourself speaking a phrase that was from your mum or dad? And you go, oh, I just sounded like my mum there or my dad. Yes. And so we pick that up, don't we? And it's embedded and it comes out maybe when you've had children and then you hear yourself speaking your mum or your dad. Springy language, slang. So school, right? So you can take the girl out of Springvale, but she'll always have a bit of slang there. I've realised that through these breakfast events when we get subtitles and it comes back with, Gunner, and I'm like, oh, did I really say that? Unfortunately, that's true. So around school and the people that we make friends with at school, their families and how they speak as well influence us, yes? And so then once we've left school and then we go into so for instance, our first job or university, whatever that looks like, and then we go into a culture within a working environment, there's a certain language used there as well, isn't it? So at work, there's a language through the culture. And I'm reading, I love recommending books that I'm half reading because I don't want to hold back. I want to give you what I'm finding is really amazing at the moment. So this book here, The Insider's Guide to Culture Change, is an amazing book that was recommended to me by an amazing woman. And I'm reading this at the moment and I'm loving it. Some of the things are really challenging me because Siobhan talks, and Siobhan McHale was the woman who led the culture change in the ANZ Bank. And that was over a period of 7 years, which I love because transformation can happen in a moment, but it takes time to sustain it. Because often as leaders, we want change to happen really quickly. But culture can live inside the walls. And so language can live inside the walls, as a beautiful leader shared with me this week. So when we come into so if you're a leader in an organisation, be aware of when you've got people coming in, they're going to be picking up language that's already within the culture. So there's lots of ways that we actually learn how to communicate. I would put in here things like expectations, obligations around how we learn, the roles that we choose, the pecking order of maybe the sibling order or what's going on at home, sometimes the gender that we are or others are influences how we communicate, potentially sexuality. There's so many things that influence. You can see why it's so complex and why sometimes we wonder why we can't have a better result when we keep doing the same thing, keep speaking the same way over and over again. So I'm sure you've got other things, of course, religion and so on would go on there as well. And that's all I want to add there because I want to move on. So I'm wanting to build a picture for you about how complex this is and why we need to really self-reflect to understand how to communicate better. Because you can read a book, you can find some tips and tricks and some 3 steps, and I do those things as well. But if you're not working on the be, do, have distinction, as I said before, doing is the saying, what we say and what we do, the actions. If we do all the right things and say all the right things, but we haven't shifted our being or our energy, then we're going to be communicating this message, not this message. Yes? So the context of who we're being, our energy and our being is made up of as our thoughts and feelings, right? If we're not aware of what's going on, let's say in a meeting where we don't feel confident or in a meeting where we feel like we're trying to push our point of view, if we're not aware that we're doing that in our state of being in the moment, then what's going to communicate is our state of being. We might say that's all fine, but people are going to feel uncomfortable if we're kind of triggered, yes? So communication, this piece here, is about understanding what happens and how we've learned how to communicate and what's driving our communication so we can change it. You with me?